Is well. My name's Daryl Johnson, and I am a teacher and tutor for the Princeton Review, here to talk to you about the SAT and how best to prepare for it. I think, in the interest of keeping everything simple, I will go blank and let you take a look at the presentation I have here. I hope that's visible to all and that I am still audible to all. I'll leave the chat box open in case there are any questions at all during this little presentation here. But yeah, let's talk about the SAT. We're going to learn about what is the SAT, what's on it, and about how and when we can help you prepare for it. Now, there we go. So one major takeaway I want you to have is that the SAT and the ACT, all these standardized tests, they're not a measure of your worth as a human being. And a lot of parents and students approach college admissions as if it were just a game of winners or losers. I got into this college, but didn't get into that one. I'm a winner. I'm better or worse than this other person. It's not about that. And what we want to try to help you with is get you into the right school for you. But regarding the overall process, couple of facts. One, it has never been easier to get into college than it is now. If you take a look at just the sheer number of available spots there are across all of the universities across the world, there is certainly a school or a number of schools that would be a good fit for you and availability within. But at the same time, it has also never been more difficult to get into college than it is now. And that's just because of the sheer demands that schools are asking of you, okay? Things like, well, standardized tests, first of all, but also letters of recommendation and essays, and you're expected to have a good, well-rounded class schedule, as well as extracurricular activities and volunteer work. The number of things that are asked of you to show that you are a serious candidate for a college or university can certainly be daunting, but we can help with that. Just a few things to keep in mind for what makes for a good applicant. First thing here is right there on the left, great grades. Now, yeah, my specialty is in test prep, and I'm here to talk to you primarily about the SAT. But really, the first thing that colleges look for is your grade point average. And the better the grades, the better your chance of getting into a particular school. So if you're on the younger side, 8th, 9th grade, then focus definitely on your grades. If it's a little bit late for that and your grades are not quite what you might want them to be, that's not necessarily the end of the world. You can certainly round out your application with the other good aspects, or the other aspects of a good application, which would be great test scores, which we're going to be focusing on, and all of the other stuff that makes for a good application. The stuff I've mentioned, letters of recommendation, essays, and the like. Now, let's talk about the tests themselves. If you have any amount of fear or stress about the test, I hope to assuage that to some degree. These are not tests to fear or stress out about too much. So, what should you think about? Well, when you should take the test is sort of dependent on, when colleges are looking to take applications, okay? But also when it would be right for you, right? Because it's entirely possible that that the upcoming SAT test date might conflict with future exams, or maybe you're going to be particularly busy during a part of the year, well, consider that when deciding when to take the SAT. But there are other things to think about as for, what's on the SAT and how you will prepare for it. But the biggest question you should ask yourself first is, how are you performing right now? Because, the first thing you should do is take a practice test. Get an idea of approximately what score you would get if you were to take the test blind, and then use that as a jumping off point to help you determine, when to take the SAT and how much to focus on it. Now, what do these tests actually measure? I already mentioned it's not a measure of your worth as a human being, and it's certainly not a measure of one's intelligence. But it can be used to award aid for most schools. So yeah, these tests are important, but do they reflect your GPA or how good of a student you are or how good of a student you might be? Well, no. But the SAT can be prepared for and should be prepared for. And we'll get into more detail on that shortly. Now, this last question in the table, do these tests test what you've learned in high school? Well, sort of, not really. I mean, yes, you do have to know how to, read, and you should know your basic mathematical properties and rules of grammar and that sort of thing. But it's not a test that you might be used to in school. It's not a pop quiz of, do you remember certain dates that things happened? And it doesn't require the memorization of even a significant number of mathematical formulas. So does it test what you've learned in high school? The answer to that is kind of, but not really. So now down to some nuts and bolts. How the SAT is scored, a number of you are probably familiar with the 200 to 800 scoring scale. That's split into two sections of math and what we call verbal. It's evidence-based reading and writing, and typically those numbers are added together to get a final score on the scale of 400 to 1600. Now, what's on the test? It's mostly multiple choice. There's a handful of math questions that will ask you to grid in the actual number, but most of it is multiple choice through math, reading, and writing, and it takes around 3 hours to take. More than that, closer to 4 hours if you take into account the breaks and the administration and all that sort of stuff. Now, what makes for a good score on the SAT is a question I get a lot. And invariably, someone will say 1600 is a good score. Well, okay, yes, that's a perfect score. But a good score really is any score that gets you into the school of your choice. But another thing to consider is that a good score can lead to scholarship money. Now, this, of course, is a very limited table, but it's just a sample of not just the types or amounts of money that a lot of schools are willing to give for decent SAT scores, but also just how varied different schools treat the SAT. So find out from wherever you might potentially be applying, not just from that opening page of the middle half of freshmen. What's the 25th to 75th percentile scores of incoming freshmen? There's that, but try to find out what sort of score they might be looking at as a cutoff for when they start awarding scholarship money, because that certainly could make a huge difference in your process. Now, when is the SAT? This is a question that is all too relevant today. Now, we are told that the August SAT is going to be on. It will take place on August 29th. It is still unclear if wherever you happen to be taking the SAT, whether it will be in a classroom setting or not. If not, the SAT will arrange for you to take it at home, but that's still a little bit up in the air as far as I've heard. But you can see the future test dates that makes for it. Okay, I see in the chat. What's a good SAT score? Well, I already answered. Whatever gets you into college. Oh, okay, we have a couple from the chat. Let's see. Sorry about that. I didn't notice. Let's see. Which all classes grades will they most probably look at? Oh, which grades will schools look at? That really sort of depends. At the most basic level, a school will just look at the overall GPA, which is another question. GPA is grade point average. Usually, at least the American system,
Hello, hi everyone. Can you hear me? If anybody can put it in chat, yes or no. This is Ruchika from Score Plus. Okay, great. So I believe Daryl is having some technical issues. So he is logging out and he will join back in few seconds.
Okay, can I be heard now? I need to open the chat to see if anybody's hearing me.
Yeah, Daryl, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Then I will share. Whoops, hang on. I need to go back to share by PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so where did I leave off? Because, yeah, since I had to go out, anybody who wrote a question in the chat who didn't hear my answer, just go ahead and put it back in the chat, because having to log in, it erased everything. But okay, what's GPA? GPA is grade point average, and that is just a numerical summation or average, really, of the grades that you get in school. Typically, the way it works, at least in the U.S., is that an A in a class is worth 4 points, and a B is worth 3 points, C is 2, and so on. And then those numbers are averaged over the course of your college career, and then you get a final number of, a 3.62 GPA or something like that. Typically, the closer to 4 or above 4, because some classes are weighted, but let's not get into that. Typically, the higher the number, the better. What's an online test going to look like with SAT? Is it open book? Aren't questions just repeated from previous ones? Well, no, questions aren't going to be repeated from previous questions. It will be a unique test that I presume the SAT is going to take great pains to ensure will be very difficult to cheat at. So they're not going to be using prior questions. They never use prior questions. But exactly how it's going to look, taking the test online, I'm not sure. This is pretty unprecedented. But as for your question of is it open book, the SAT kind of already is open book, because everything that you need is in the text booklet itself. You don't need any outside knowledge of the text, for example. Now, if it is questions of, maybe a math question, a student might feel a little bit hesitant about solving or factoring for quadratics and might be tempted to look that information up. How the SAT will probably will try to combat that, I'm not entirely sure. That's something I'm looking forward to find out. But even still, that shouldn't be too much of a problem, I think. Let's see. See a question. Currently part of the IBDP, don't have GPAs. Would the IB points I receive at the end of the year be okay? Yes. Any college that takes international students is aware of IB points and has their own understanding of it and their own rubrics for that. So yeah, when I say GPA, it essentially just means your grades, how well you've done in the courses that you chose to take over your high school career. What is a good GPA score? Well, that's another thing that sort of depends on the college. Just think of it like this. A 3.0 is a B average, meaning you average a B in all of your classes. A 4.0 is an A average, meaning you average an A in all of your classes. So a 3.5 and above typically puts you on what we call the honor roll of a particular school. But, you know, whether that's sufficient to get into the school of your choice really depends on the school of your choice, you know. How long should it take to prepare for the SAT? Well, that's sort of the point of this this webinar, because typically it takes people around a couple of months to properly prepare for the SAT, but everyone's a little bit different, and that's why I invite you to take a practice test first, so you have a pretty good idea of how long you should take, because that our classes are typically 8 weeks long for a reason, because most people are scoring sort of in the middle of that 200 to 800 scale, scoring somewhere between 400 or 350 really and 500, on a given math or verbal section. So if you're in that range, it's typically that, but that's something that you'll have to adjust as you take practice tests and see. How's Princeton going to help us? Well, I'll get into that shortly. Let's see. How many times can we take the SAT? Well, College Board will let you take the SAT as many times as you want. They'll take your money. What we recommend is don't take it more than 3 times. Most people do take the SAT a second time and tend to do better that second time. If that doesn't happen, you might be in the small group of people where we would recommend, okay, maybe take it a third time, but don't take it any more than that, because if you're spending that much time worrying about standardized tests, you probably could be using that time a little more wisely by focusing on the other aspects of your application that can help you out. How do I take the practice test? Well, hang on, and I'll show you exactly how, and you can also contact our office to get exact dates and copies of our tests, but we'll get to that soon enough. So now this is not for the practice test. This slide is for the real SAT. All of this really boils down to go to collegeboard.org, and you can register for the actual SAT. Just fill out the forms, you'll figure it out. And the other part of it is you will have to upload a picture of yourself and bring a printout to the testing center if there is a testing center. Exactly what the procedure will be if you have to take it at home, I'm not sure. You're going to have to read about that along with the rest of us. But as for how to prepare for it, everybody's a little bit different, but it starts with understanding what is going to be on the test. And that's number one, content knowledge. And it's listed first, but it's not the most important thing. Because sure, yeah, you should know how to read at a certain level to understand what's being written. You should have you don't need an extensive vocabulary, but one good enough to understand the passages that they throw you. But the main things to keep in mind are your strategy and your technique, because the SAT is eminently predictable. It really doesn't throw too many curveballs at you. The question types that you see on one SAT are going to be pretty much the same as the question types you'll see on the next SAT. And so being able to recognize exactly which questions to do and how to do them, how to approach them, is the best way to maximize your score on the SAT. And the way to do that is in numbers 4 and 5 there. Practice tests and practice questions and analyzing exactly what mistakes you're still making and how you can improve that in order to further improve your confidence. And the last thing there is endurance. The SAT takes almost 4 hours. It's an endurance test, and that's something that a lot of students aren't necessarily used to, having to focus on a test for that long, which is why we have our students take practice tests so that they get used to it. And also why in my classes, I often give lengthy drills, and actually progressively longer drills as a course goes on, just so that they can get used to focusing for that long. I see a couple other questions in the chat here. Will the upcoming SATs be online? As I said, maybe. We're not sure yet, but that's something to keep on the eye out for. And then what's the marking scheme for SAT? Well, I'm not sure what you mean. If it's, well, okay, I think I know what you mean, like the scoring system. Well, the way it works is every question that you bubble in correctly on your Scantron is +1 to your raw score. Okay. If you get the question wrong, it's +0. There's no penalty for a wrong answer. And the number of questions you get right in, let's say, just the math, there's what, 52, or no, it would be 38 plus 20, 58 overall questions on the SAT math. Whatever that number is from 0 to 58 is then put into their curve or their algorithm, and you get a scaled score on a scale of 200 to 800. So it's strictly how many questions you get right and how many you get right in comparison to everybody else who does. And so typically if you do better than half of the people who take the SAT, that's going to be about a 500. Is there any criteria for writing? Yes. Well, we'll get into that soon enough. I'm going to talk about what's on the test, but generally speaking, let's just say the SAT requires testing savvy, and it's a savvy that you'll need that goes beyond normal tests that you might be used to from school. Because, well, first, what I'd like to show you here is the way these questions are worded. And yeah, you can have a little chuckle at these jokes, but the way these questions are worded is not how the SAT words its questions. It's not just going to say name the quadrilateral or find X. It'll ask something like, which of the following is the most accurate word to describe the shape above, or find the value of X, or which of the following is a possible value of X, so that there's no room for ambiguity or smart answers like this. But another thing is the SAT takes advantage of how predictable people are. First thing, what I want you to do is think of a number, any number. Actually, if you're in a chat, give me a number. I don't care. Throw a number at me. 7, sure. 3, yeah, okay. So I see 7, I see 3. Now think about what those numbers have in common. Those numbers are pretty small. They're both one-digit numbers. They happen to be odd. Okay. They're all positive. It happens to be that they're all prime. That's true. But the big thing is that they're all positive integers. Every time I ask this question, whether online or in an auditorium or wherever, all I ever get are small positive integers. But you could have said, 1,000,000,005. You could have said 3.2. You could have said -8. You could have said the square root of 5. All of those are numbers. But you gave me small positive integers, like everybody else. Just shows you are predictable. And the SAT likes to get you to make mistakes by getting you to, think in those manners, by maybe perhaps exploiting the difference between integers and non-integers. Or, well, consider this. Think about the color of the background of the screen that you're looking at right now, okay? So consider that, and then think about You know that fabric that worms make? Yeah, so think about that. Now I want you to quickly answer just in your head, what do cows drink? Well, if you thought milk, well, no. Cows produce milk, but cows drink water. Okay, calves drink milk from their mothers, but cows drink water. Now, a number of you probably didn't fall for it, but some of you probably did. Um, because I primed your head. I got you thinking about the color white, and I got you thinking about silk. So you're thinking in one method about the color of the beverage, and another word that happens to rhyme with it. And so a number of you probably thought milk and fell into that little trap and thus got a wrong answer, right? So just realize that understanding those traps that the SAT likes to lay really will help you in the long run. And what can also help is the right coach, someone like perhaps me, where, whoops, sorry, gotta click on the screen for it to change. So the bad news about these tests is that the SAT and the ACT, every standardized test, is designed in such a way as to subvert your every expectation, to get you to make mistakes by being different from what you're used to. Because, well, think about it. How many tests in school have you ever taken that last up to 4 hours on a Saturday morning? Presumably surrounded by strangers, or taken online in a weird situation, and that's before you even get into the way the questions are worded, how things can be really tricky, where, okay, you have this really lengthy word problem, and you come across you have to go through a whole bunch of numbers, you come across one number that's in the answer choices, but you're not actually done, because that's a partial answer that you get to along the way. Or, you solve for x and you see x equals 4, and so you see 4 in the answer choices and you choose that and move on, not noticing that the question was actually asking, what's the value of 3x? That's not really a math question. That's a were you reading the question, And so people making those assumptions or committing these common mistakes that you've been staring at for the last few seconds, answering too quickly, rushing through, making careless errors, then you're just falling into just the traps that the SAT wants you to fall into, okay? And, hipping you to those sorts of tricks can certainly help you, okay? So the right coach makes all the difference. Also, the right prep makes all the difference. We have a number of different ways of helping you out. We have full-length courses, but as far as the online versions go, we have, you can see them right here. The first one is the SAT self-paced, where you have full access to what we call our online student center. And in the online student center, there are full video lessons that you can go through and additional drills and practice questions and homework that you can do at your own pace, and check in every now and then by taking practice tests and maybe meeting with one of us. Now, these courses, no, they're not free. The practice test is free. And I'd say start with that. If you take the practice test and then use that as a gauge to help determine which of these options might be best for you. Because, okay, there's the self-paced. If you are pretty good at learning things on your own and are pretty disciplined in that way, that might be right for you. But you might prefer a more classroom course where you're learning alongside other students or having a teacher work with you one-on-one. And all of those are options that are available to you, and you can ask about those more specifically if you email the address there on the screen, onlinelearning@score-plus.com. You'll have another chance to see that soon enough. All right, but let's take a look at just a couple of sample problems. We don't have time to do a whole bunch of them, but I like to show you a little bit of my method, the way I approach these questions and how I teach them as well. So this is a sample of a typical grammar section. It's section 2 of the SAT, where it'll be some passage and parts of the passage are underlined, and then you'll have often, for the grammar questions, different alternatives, and you have to pick the best one according to rules of grammar and usage and clarity. So first thing that I tell my students to do is always read the sentence and read the full sentence. So, okay, although printed cheaply and for quick consumption, today's experience of culture is largely shaped by dime novels. Okay, then I ask my students, well, did you spot any errors? And, well, if you ask me, I don't know if I spot an error. It's kind of weirdly worded, but weird wording isn't usually enough to necessarily cross off the answer. So what I do is I encourage my students to look at what's changing among the answer choices. And here we can see it's just the way the wording is. It's sort of like the order of words, which with that and combined with the fact that we have this introductory phrase, this although printed cheaply and for quick consumption, comma, what's typically being tested is a misplaced modifier, which basically means that modifiers or modifying phrases, words, adjectives, whatever the case may be, should be close to whatever they're modifying. And so this introductory modifier, although printed cheaply and for quick consumption, whatever comes after that comma should probably be whatever or whoever is printed cheaply and for quick consumption. And so, yes, in the chat, the answer would have to be C, because, well, with A, today's experience of culture isn't printed cheaply. In B, we experience culture, so we are being printed cheaply. That doesn't make sense. And D, the shape of dime novels influences our cultural experiences. Well, it's not the shape that's printed cheaply. It doesn't make sense. And it also kind of changes the meaning of the sentence that, the shape of the novel influences us. No, it's the novel influence or has shaped our culture, So that's a proofreading question. The other common question type you'll see in the grammar section is what we call editor questions, where it's not necessarily about a particular rule of grammar. It's more about, what answers the question or what is the clearest. Here in question 2, it asks which of the following true phrases gives the most specific information in the context. Okay, so we have some of our best known authors from this period, though there were also some notable exceptions, published something close to their complete works between the pages of countless periodicals. Well, here, let's look at the answer choices and see, well, what gives the most specific information? Okay, there were some notable exceptions. Okay, that might be true. And then some of the best known authors of all time takes a different tone, but I don't know if it's more specific. And some who were not so well known, that's probably even more vague. And then D, especially Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Hey, that's probably the most specific, right? It's giving specific names, So this one, these editor questions tend to be more straightforward than a lot of students give them credit for. It really is take it literally. Which is the most specific? D. Okay, let's move on. So let's take a look at another one. All right, so we have Alexander the Great is a name known to all, but not all know the extent of Alexander's accomplishments. Now that the study of the classics, mainly Roman and Greek civilizations, has disappeared both from high school and college curricula, Alexander the Great's legend is not on the tongue of every schoolboy, although his accomplishments have not diminished for all that. Okay, so that's one rather long sentence, but, always read to the period. So here it's again about wording, right? Most specifically, should there be from and where should both be? Well, this also has to do with, it does have to do with misplaced modifier. Because, well, what does the both actually modify? We want to say both high school and college, right? We want the both to go with the and we're talking about high school and college. So we should probably put the both right next to the high school and college. So I'd get rid of A and I'd get rid of D right there. Now with B and C, the question is, should there be the from? Well, okay, so the study of the classics has disappeared both high school and college curricula. So, well, without the from, kind of makes it sound like that the classics are making high schools disappear. They're disappearing them, right? Changes the meaning, makes it somewhat nonsensical. So yeah, this one, as you might expect, is going to be B. So now number 4, we can see we've already read the sentence. We notice what's changing here is just word choice. And with word choice, you want to take into account meaning and tone, okay? So we want to say, okay, Alexander the Great's legend is not on the tongue of every schoolboy, though his accomplishments have not diminished for all that. If we look at the other choices, do they actually fix anything? Well, ameliorated, well, if you don't know the meaning of that word, that's fine, give it a question mark. And gone down, okay, diminished, gone down mean pretty much the same thing, but just in terms of tone of something that's going to show up on a standardized test, diminished probably fits a little better than gone down. I'd probably get rid of that. And subsided, well, I think you know what subsided means. Subsided means, eased off or went away. Like, after a while, the storm subsided and the skies cleared. So his accomplishments have not subsided. Just the meaning of that word doesn't quite fit. And so if we're in the case where we have A, diminished makes a certain amount of sense, B, ameliorated, I don't know what that means. Well, yeah, go with A, go with your gut. Don't just jump onto the word that you might not know just because you don't know it. But also, if you know what ameliorated means, it doesn't fit anyway, right? Ameliorate means like to make something better or something bad seem better. And in context, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, So now to a question that's been asked already. Please come take a free practice test. So what you can do is you can get your test, just email onlinelearning@score-plus.com to ask when and how you can take that test. And the complimentary scores back session, I believe I will be hosting, so I'll be happy to answer any further specific questions about your practice test. We can go over whatever you like. And then beyond that, you can decide whether you want to join one of my classes or do online prep or get a hold of some extra books and do self-prep. But whichever route you take, what I want to implore you all is that you don't take it blind. Take this practice test at the very, very least and prepare for it, because these tests, as arbitrary and unfair and dehumanizing these tests may be, they are predictable and you can prepare them and you prepare for them, and you absolutely should prepare for them. Okay? So we have all sorts of options for you, as I was mentioning. Whoops, hang on. There we go. And this here gives a little bit more detail as to what we offer here. So if you take one of our practice tests, you'll have, and enroll in one of our classes, you'll have access not just to your scores, but also every question that you answered. And you'll be able to track exactly how your scores are changing. And you can go down to any level of detail. You can see how you're doing specifically with the reading, or specifically with specific questions on the reading, or general questions on the reading, or do you have a problem with punctuation or with fractions, or whatever the case may be. You can see that laid out in front of you in your score reports online, and you can go over every individual question as well. And on top of that, as I said, within the Online Student Center, you have additional lessons and drills and full explanations for all questions that you can come across. Okay. Another thing that we offer is homework help. Let's see. Yeah, the formatting on this slide, I got a little wonky in the translation, I think, so sorry about that. But just know you can also enroll in homework help with Princeton Review at princetonreview.com. There are, well, as it says, 3,000 tutors available at all times. Well, in total, 3,000 tutors. Somebody is available at all times to help you out on your homework. You can just go to princetonreview.com to learn more about that as well. But also, if you have questions about applications, the application process, please email the office and ask about that. My personal specialty is just in the tests. It's been far too long since I've had to apply to college for me to speak in anything but generalities. So please email our office and ask to get a hold of our advisor experts for that. But just know that Princeton Review is effective. I can tell you from experience, if you show up to class, do your homework, take my advice, your scores are going to go up. And yes, I can give the email address once again. It's actually right there. This is my, whoops, no, go back. There we go. Accidentally hit the button too many times. Yeah, it's right there. Online learning at score-plus.com. And you can visit our website, princetonreviewme.com, for anything specific regarding future classes and registering for practice tests and when the scores back session will be, all that good stuff. Are there any specific questions you guys have for me right now? No? Well, if you do have more test-specific questions, oh, okay, there we go. How do SAT works, and are they really a thing? Oh, yes, they are really a thing. So the way it works, picture a bell curve. I'm sure you've seen that before. It's a curve that looks like a bell, okay? The top of the curve, typically for an SAT, actually the SAT is specifically designed to fit as closely to that symmetrical bell as possible, where the top of the bell is a 500 score on the 200 to 800 scale, which means that about half of people get above a 500 on the math. We'll just use math as the example, and half score below 500. Now the actual number is usually a little above 500. It's like 512, or something like that. And then you get fewer and fewer people getting scores on the edges. So not a lot of people score above 700. Not a lot of people score below 300. And the vast majority of people who take the SAT score between a 400 and a 600. And it's never a perfect normal distribution, if you ever learned that in statistics class, in which it's exactly like 68% between 400 and 600 on the SAT math, but it's pretty close every time. And as for how they work, well, it's the questions themselves are designed in such a way so that it follows those percentages, but also those numbers are then tweaked a little bit so that it fits the curve even a little better. So it's possible that, say you got, I'm just making up these numbers, but you get 30 questions right on the math, and that works out to be a, let's say it would be a 540, something like that, okay? It's possible that someone getting 31 questions would also get a 540. But depending on the curve, maybe that 31 questions is worth a 560. Sort of depends on how everybody does. But those differences typically don't change too much. And if you just look for any sort of image search of translating SAT raw scores to scaled scores, you'll see that they don't change too much from administration to administration. Let's see. Yeah, so your scores will be based on other students' performance as well, but the other students' performances are predictable to a degree that it doesn't change that much from one administration to the next. But technically, yes. Let's see. My daughter is in 11th grade, and when should she start giving SAT exam? Also, what's the minimum age or eligibility? As far as I know, there's no minimum age or eligibility, nor is there a maximum age. The SAT will take your money and let you take the SAT, no matter how old or young you are. Now, if you're in 11th grade, I recommend preparing for the SAT soon, because typically a good schedule to have is in the summer between 11th grade and 12th grade. That's a good time to take the SAT for the first time. So consider applying for the August or September test and prepare for that. But if a later test date works better for your daughter's schedule, then by all means go with that. But definitely take it sometime between this August and like the October of her senior year. Let that be, the very sort of last ditch final time to take the test. And the reason we recommend that is because it takes a little while for scores to get sent out, and we want to ensure, well, you want to ensure that all the scores are in by the time that the application deadline has passed. And most early bird deadlines for schools are in the December to January area. So that's generally what we recommend. Any other questions? No? Well, let's see. If anybody has any specific questions to tests, you can email our office. In the chat, I also put my personal email in there. So if you have any questions for me specifically, feel free to ask. It's darylj@score-plus.com. But yeah, yes. No, it's just some background noise. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. And as I said, we do have another question. Here we go. Is there any way to check the average SAT score in your area? Certainly, you can look that up state by state in the U.S. and at least internationally you can. Per country, I've had a little bit of trouble finding that some years from the College Board site, but that information is available. But average SAT scores from area to area don't change a lot. That's why I usually say it's around 500, but yeah, it's not going to change too much. But yeah, that's something you can certainly find out from the College Board website. Okay, well, I have another class starting shortly, so I'm going to have to let you guys go. As I said, I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions, just send me or the office an email. Oh, if you get a score of 1,400, can you get admission in a university with a limit of 1,500? Well, yes, you can. The individual, like 1,400, 1,500, those aren't necessarily cutoffs. It's a part of the overall application, right? And if you see those ranges of incoming freshmen, say it's okay from 1,450 to 1,550, or what we're looking for at our very prestigious university. That's just the middle half. That means 25% of people who got in scored below that range. So yeah, if you're a little bit below the range, you can certainly make up for it with the other aspects of your application. But Yep, I'm going to have to get going. As I said, please contact me if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Darren.
Of course.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruchika Agarwal. I am the head counselor at the Princeton Review Score Plus. Today, in our webinar, we will going to see that how college application checklist should go for achieving the highest scholarship. So what we're going to cover in today's webinar is that we're going to see that what are the tips to create a strong application. We will also see that what kind of mistakes students make and what mistakes to avoid in college applications. And we'll cover up that what should be the right approach to get maximum scholarship. Now, if you guys can tell me what are the most important application components, can anybody put it in the chat? What are the most important application component? Any idea? Anybody? Essays, okay. Anything else? Nobody? Well, okay, fine. So basically, what are these skills? Okay, Mohammed, skills are important. That's correct. Okay. So what are the most important application components are? I would say it depends on where you're applying. We will going to cover up that what exactly it means. I would like to say that herein it depends on the universities which you are going to apply, because each and every university differ with what is the most important application components for them are. Now, if we'll sum up that what all are the application components which are required to submit your applications, we have covered in our last few webinars as well. So your high school transcripts, your standardized test scores, your common app essays, supplement essays, recommendation letters, your demonstrated interest, your extracurricular activities. So when it comes to college admission components, application components, the entire application and how it is presented is important. Generally, the most important thing is the GPA and the challenging high school curriculum. That is followed by your test scores for those colleges that require them. Quality extracurricular activities, outstanding essays are extremely important, as well as in that they can distinguish a student from other viable candidates. Recommendation letters are carefully evaluated, and if an interview is offered, the student should have one. The interviewer writes a report that goes in the student's admission file, and it's important not to underestimate any aspect of the application. Now, when you consider as an application component, you should concentrate on the whole pie rather than just concentrating on a slice. So look at this pie, and that signifies what your application looks like. You can see that 1/3 of the pie is your high school transcripts, your coursework and your grades. And a bigger part is also your test scores, wherein the universities are asking for test scores. The rest of the pie constitutes other aspect of your credential, like we have discussed the and all. College admission counselors take in the picture of who are by looking at the whole pie. Do not underestimate any of the portion. All components are important in showing you as a potential successful candidates for the college application. Now we'll look at the, can anybody tell which is this university or college? Any guess? Yes, my audience. Any guesses? No? Okay. So this is, okay, Princeton. No, it's Dartmouth College, which is in Hanover, Boston. Can anybody tell anything about Dartmouth College? Any information, any idea what this college is? Any understanding to Dartmouth College? It's an Ivy League. Absolutely correct. Anything else? But what kind of college it is? Public, private, state? Well, Dartmouth College is a private college and it's an Ivy League college. It's founded in 1769 and it adopted co-education in 1969. Yes, it is a private college, Priyanka, that's right. So it's 265-acre campus, which is located in the northwest of Boston. Now, today why I'm covering Dartmouth is in last webinar, I covered up Yale University. Basically, we have just discussed what application components are, and now we will going to see those application components and what are the most important application components in Dartmouth College. So let's have a look to it. When it comes to admission, this is the Dartmouth College class for 2023. So you can see the entrance difficulty is most difficult because it's an Ivy League university, a selective college. So to get into Dartmouth College is difficult. If you'll see, overall admission rate is only 9%. So out of 22,033 applications, only 9% of students got the admit. These colleges, Ivy League universities, mostly do not offer early action. They preferably offer early decision, which is a binding deadline, because they want to see that students are how keen on or how committed to their university or college. But they also have regular admission deadline, which is in January, wherein if the student do not want to bind themselves and want to keep the options open, they can apply these colleges in regular admission deadline. Now, when it comes to the qualification of the enrolled freshman, there is no reported GPA or a compulsory GPA they have mentioned on their website or in their admission requirement, but their class is full of the class students who are amongst the top 10 students in their high school years. When it comes to the test scores that they required, maths, they are looking for any score between 720 to 790, and English, they are looking for anything between 700 to 770. So you can say that an average score for a student is range between 1420 to 1510 or 20. When it comes to ACT, they are looking for an average score for 33 out of 36. This is the another important part of the admission components, application components, which you should consider while applying to any of the university. Like my first question in this webinar was that what are the most important application component, wherein I mentioned that college admission officer differs in the components that are most important for them. So every school, you will get the data on college data website or on their own website to see that what are the important components for them. So when we look at Dartmouth College, you can see there are very important, considered and not considered factors. So always look at these factors, see what are the important or most important factors, evaluate your profile as per those factors, and accordingly choose your college. So Dartmouth College is really interested in your GPA, your high school GPA, and they also want to know that how much you have challenged yourself and what is the rigor in your course curriculum. They are also interested in the standardized test. At the moment, they have not made it optional. So they are really looking for standardized test. They look for class rank, which I have just mentioned, top 10 students in the class. Recommendation letters are also very important for them, and also essays. Dartmouth College, there are universities who ask for one recommendation letter, two, three, or so and so forth. They also give the students option to upload, I mean, n number of recommendation letters, but Dartmouth College specifically is very much interested in to get the recommendation letter from your peer. They want to know from your peer that what they think about you. So that's what the unique admission criteria for Dartmouth College is. Interview, it is considered, but it's not important as the other factors are. They will going to interview, but they will not going to evaluate your rest of the application based on your interview performance. The level of applicants' interest, like we have discussed that one of the factor was demonstrated interest. They are not very much keen on that. They rather keen on the other factors which we have discussed, or the factors like extracurricular activities and the character and personal qualities. Those are important for them. If you have volunteering work or you are having particular talent or ability, they are very much interested in to know about that. They also consider that if you are a first generation to attend the college. Any idea what is first generation to attend college? Any understanding you guys have of this? Okay, anyways, so if you are the first generation person in your family who will going to attend the college, yeah, exactly, Prashil, that's what it is. So if you are the first generation person in your family, then they will going to consider that. State residency is not important for them, but yes, geographic residency is important for them to create a diversified profile so that students can have experience to connect with different nationalities and different students from different geography. They also consider the students who are having relationship with their alumni. So if let's say suppose if your brother, your cousin, anybody from your family, friends have studied in Dartmouth College and you would like to mention that what is their feedback, and based on their feedback, that's the one reason, that's why you have considered Dartmouth College as an application. They will really consider that as well. My voice is breaking. Am I clear now? Okay, so let me just continue. Religious affiliation or commitment is not at all important. Ethnicity can be ma'am, I can't hear you. What is the problem? Neetu, can you hear me? Okay, she can hear me. So I think anybody else who can hear me? Your voice is clear for me. So I believe the person who has written before, maybe there is some challenge in your computer. Okay, and work experience is not considered and ethnicity is considered. So all what I'm saying is that when you are shortlisting the colleges, you have to see that what are the important factors which that particular college consider, and based on that you have to create your whole application components, your essays, your letter of recommendation, your rest of the profile, your supplement essays, everything. Let's look at the money matters, because that's the another criteria which you look at while shortlisting the colleges, because you do not want to spend too much on your undergraduate education. And these Ivy League colleges and specifically private colleges are I didn't hear what you said, are Said, if you are unable to hear, because I feel there is a challenge with your system, this webinar recording will be there on mptu website. You can check out the website, whatever part you will going to miss. Okay, so money matters definitely. So Dartmouth College is one college which provides a good amount of scholarship to the students. This is the cost of attendance, which is total of $77,744, which is too much for a year, which includes tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, other expenses. But they do offer prepayment plans, installment plans, and other financial aid, need-based financial aid basically. Now, when it comes to application process for the financial aid, they are having a deadline wherein you have to submit. For international students, you have to submit the CSS profile, wherein it's available on College Board, and there is an application fees to submit that application. If you are not an international student, domestic student, then FAFSA is there and it's free. The award will be announced on or about April 2. You will get to know. And yes, you can submit this application. It's a need-based application wherein Dartmouth College will going to see that how much your family is earning, what is your expenditure, and how much do you need further to study in Dartmouth College. And Dartmouth College gives 100% scholarship to, I mean, 100% of the students get the scholarship whom they recognize, that whom they consider that they actually looking for need-based financial aid. Other than this, campus life, that is another important factor which you should consider when you are considering a college, because all these students are having their own interests, their values, and what extracurricular activities they are involved in. Specifically, when we talk about sports, that's what Dartmouth College is known for all these sports which are available. And based on your level of sports, what you're doing, if you are if you're playing a basketball and you are a national level basketball player, international level basketball player, based on that you will be having opportunity to get scholarship, because Dartmouth College is one of the college which is Division 1 NCCA accreditation. They are having a good amount of scholarship offered to the students who are participating in the sports which they are representing. Other than sports, they are having different clubs. So if you are not a sports person, there are different activities and organizations which you should look at, because that should interest you. You will not going to only study, study and study. You will also be needing some kind of leisure time, which you will going to um, do some kind of activities at campus. When it comes to the other activities, you can see that marching band, drama theater, radio station, student newspaper, television station, these are the activities other than sports which you can consider. So now let's have a look at to the tips to create the strong applications. The first and foremost important thing is that you should start early. The earlier you start, the better it is. Any idea from anybody that when should you start your application, college application process? What is the right time to start the college application process? Anybody can tell? Anyone? In which grade you guys are? 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th? During the summer break of 12th. I'm in 12th, but I believe we have other graders here. Okay. So Prashil mentioned that during the summer break of 12th. Okay. So I am having most of the senior high school students. To be very honest, college admission process should start when you are in your freshman year of high school. I can understand it could be surprising for you, but there are few things which you should start from your freshman high school year, followed by sophomore high school year, and then in junior year you should start with your test prep. I would say even in freshman or sophomore year you can start with PSAT, and in junior year you can take all the other tests like SAT subject, which is required for enhancing your application. But if you'll say that you should start your college application when you will be in 12th in your summer break, honestly, it would be too late. It's too late because you will be having only 2 to 3 months. 2 months, I would say, for the vacation, and then your schools will start, and then your exams will start, and then sooner the application deadlines will start. So it would not be a good idea to wait for preparing for your college application when you will be in your senior year of high school and in your summer vacation. You should start early. You should have started now if in case you're looking for fall 2021 admissions. Now, definitely you should start early as soon as possible. The next thing is that you have to stay organized. Organization is the key to college application process. Some students will undoubtedly be procrastinate until just days or hours before their first application deadline. I have seen that in my experience. And in my experience, it has proven that this approach really ends well, to be very honest. It usually leads to poorly written essays, hastily drafted supplement essays, and sloppily completed applications. Instead of waiting until pressure is on, it is advised to be proactive. Just like any other major project which you do in your school or other than outside your classroom, it is important to start with a plan. Start with maybe college list, preparing college list. If you're preparing your college list in summer break, then when you're going to prepare what essays you have to write, when you will going to prepare that what deadlines you will going to apply. So I would suggest at whatever time frame you are right now, if you have started your college applications before, really great. If not, then this is the time. You should not waste your time and start your college applications now. And the first step is that you should create a college list, because creating a college list is a very important factor and it will consume a whole lot of time. You have to do a good amount of research. You, while developing the shortlist, you have to see, first you have to list down that what are your priorities, what are your preferences. I mean, this is not the time wherein you should procrastinate. Develop, you have to check out the departments of the universities, you have to check out the ranking of the universities, where these universities are located, the other factors which we have just discussed. Based on that, you will going to shortlist the university. You also have to see financial aid and compare with the other universities if you are really looking for financial aid. And you also have to compare the campus life. So doing a research, going to the websites, looking at different websites. There are so many websites which are available which will tell you that how you can prepare a good college list. You can research for different colleges and you can also check at their own website to find out the data which we have just shared. So start with the college list. Once you have prepared your college list, I would also like to say that your college list should be having 3 categories: dream, reach, and safe, so that you can also aim for the ambitious universities, can also look at the safety schools wherein you will definitely get in. Once you are decided, maybe 8 to 10 colleges which you want to apply, it is important to create a tracker, because this tracker will help you throughout your application process. Create a tracker on an Excel sheet, on a Google sheet. List down all the colleges you want to apply. List down their deadlines. You want to apply an early action, early decision, or regular deadline. List down the deadlines of the colleges. Then list down all the supplement essays which you have to write. Because when you will list down all the supplement essays, you will able to figure it out what are the super essay topics. all the colleges will ask for 1 to 5 supplement essays, and it is not important if you're applying to 8 and the colleges on an average, let's say suppose, will ask for 2 to 3 essays, then will you going to write 21 to 24 essays? No, would be very difficult and time consuming. So when you are listing down all the supplement essays, you will able to recognize that many colleges are asking for same information. They may have a different essay topic, but is relevant to other essay topics for other colleges. And those essays are known as super topics. So if you're able to figure it out that these are the super topics, I can say that you only have to write maximum 5 to 7 essays for all your 8 universities applications. So this tracker is very important. Also, application credentials. You can definitely save your application credential. This is not the time to do so because the application will going to open in the month of August, 1st of August, I would say. So the moment the application opens, create the account on the applications and save your login credentials in this tracker, because maybe you will save on the laptop, but you want to access the application from somewhere else. Having this tracker will help you to log into your application and will not you will not going to forget your login credentials, so that it would be easy for you to access it as and when required. So create this application tracker. It is very important. Start brainstorming. This is the most important part wherein essays or supplement essays comes in, because as one of the student has mentioned that essays are the most important factor for application. Definitely they are, because your grades, your academics can be evaluated to the scores which you have mentioned, maybe through your test scores, but when it comes to what kind of student you are can only be recognized by the essays which you will going to write or the experiences which you will going to share it with the colleges. So I would suggest make a list of maybe 20, 25 things which you would like to share with the admission officer. See what experiences you would like to consider that admission officer should know about it. Once you will create that list, then you can cut down that list, brainstorm further and cut down that what are the most important values in those lists, in that list you are covering. So when you see that these are the values and these are the things which you want to cover, then list down, cut down those values to maybe 5 to 3 that you want to represent in your application, and consider the experiences which are related to those values which are most important to you. So start brainstorming right now and make the list of the things which you want to present in your application. Become a storyteller. Admission officer spends a matter of minute. They don't spend too much time on each and every application, because you have seen that Dartmouth College was having 22,000 application, and there are limited number of resources admission officers available at the university. So they will going to spend a minute on your application, so you must hook them. It is really important. Your entire application should tell a unique, cohesive story about who you are and what you bring to their campus. I have seen most of the students while writing their essays, they write the essays like they are writing the essays in their high school. I mean, sharing the information. It's not sharing the information, it's about you. So you have to learn how to be a storyteller, how you will going to share your experience in the form of the way you are sharing a story. You are sharing a story with an admission officer. So learn how to be a storyteller. Use active voice instead of passive voice. Narrate yourself. That is really important when you're writing your essays. What do you mean by optional? Any idea? What is the meaning of optional when it comes to applications, college applications? Anybody? No, there are some information, some essays which are optional when you are filling up your online application. but optional actually isn't really optional. So unless you have a really, really good reason, anything listed as optional should be considered required. I'm not talking about including an art portfolio when you're applying to engineering, but if there is an essay or test that's optional, do it and do it really well. If you submit something, it will be considered. So make sure it tells the admission committee something new about you. So don't forget to, there are students, I mean, essays, students try to skip the essays as much as possible. They even look for the universities wherein the essays are optional. So optional doesn't mean that you do not have to consider it. You should consider it and write the essay. There are some information on the application form which is not mandatory. So students think like if the application is not asking as a mandatory requirement, they skip mentioning that information. But that information will going to tell something or the other about you to the admission officer. So I would recommend whatever is required by the application, you should consider it and give as much information you can to the admission officer. Those were the tips, and these are the some mistakes which you should avoid while putting your college applications. Don't forget to read directions. It is very important that you should go through the website, you should go through the application form, you should go through the essay topic and understand what they are asking for. There was a year wherein, like Penn State University, I can share an example wherein Penn State University actually do not offer an early action or early decision to international students. But they have mentioned on their common app application form, just like that early action is this deadline, but they have not mentioned that is it for international students or domestic students. But when you'll go to the website, Penn State is saying that there is no early action for international students. And that year, I know that there were one or two students who have submitted their application selecting early action as an international student. And then they got an email from the university stating that you have not applied for the university in the right deadline. That's not, you are not eligible for that deadline, and that it becomes little hasty. And then the student, you have to send an email to the university to provide a clarification, and then university have to make changes in their application system. So it doesn't look good. So make sure that whenever you're deciding that this university you want to apply, you read the directions properly on their website. Don't let parents take a lead. That's very important. I have also seen the students wherein they are sitting, or maybe they are working on their class curriculum, or maybe they are busy in their extracurricular activities, and parents are doing most of the part. That should not be done. Parents should guide you. Parents should tell you that what should be done. They can keep an eye on you, that is it the things are done in the proper way or in the time, but they should not do your application. You should fill in your application. You can always ask your parents to tell that what needs to be filled in. You should write your essays. Parents should not write, but yes, you can ask them that what would be the good idea. You can share the experiences or the list which you have created and ask them that what you think, that what they think, that this is the better thing to put it in your application. But you should lead your application. It's your application. Don't submit your application or essays without proofreading. It's very important. No grammatical error, no spelling mistake, no wrong information in the application. It is very, very important. So once you have actually compiled your application with all the required application components, make sure that you will going to review each and every part of your application and then hit the submit button. Don't wait until the last minute to apply. Yes, we have already discussed the earlier you start, the better it is. But there are students, if in case the deadline of the university is 1st of November, they would prefer submitting the application on 1st of November only. Don't do that. That doesn't look good. If you are ready, you should be ready beforehand. Try to submit your application a day, 2 or 3 before the application deadline. There could be some last minute technical issues. I have seen that the students last year who have applied for the application which was having a deadline of 15th October and submitting the application on 15th October, the application was submitted, but somehow they were unable to get the confirmation. They made the application fees and they were really worried that is their application gone or not, because that was one of the preferred university for them. So make sure that you submit your application well before time. Don't repeat information throughout the application. That is another important factor when there are so many application components which we have already discussed. Academics are done in your transcripts, test scores are done in your test scores section, wherein you will also going to report the test scores officially. Extracurricular activities, don't repeat if you are excelling in one particular or two extracurricular activities. Don't keep on repeating in the other parts of your application, because that's the different part of the application is basically to tell more admission officer about whatever you can tell, maximum what you can tell, what kind of person or what kind of values you have. So repeating information is basically wasting that application component. Don't overdo extracurricular activities to impress. That's another factor. Some students, they start doing some kind of extracurricular activities last minute. They will do the extracurricular activities, like they will join a club, maybe they will do an online course, which is just they must have started a month back maybe. That will not look nice. So whatever extracurricular activities, less or many, try to put those activities in best possible way you can. Don't put additional activities just to showcase, because admission officers are reviewing the applications for many years, and they will going to recognize that are you actually interested in this activity, or you have just done for the application's sake. Scholarships. This is the last but not the least important factor of while doing the application. So we have discussed in our last webinar that there are different forms of scholarships available at the US universities. Merit-based scholarships and need-based scholarships are the most popular scholarships among the international students. Need-based scholarships, I have already covered that there is a separate deadline for each and every university, wherein you have to submit a college board form and to disclose the income and expenditure of your family, based on which the universities will provide you the financial aid. But when it comes to merit-based scholarships, here in which we are talking specifically about merit-based scholarship, the first thing is that you should shortlist the colleges which are actually offering scholarship to international students. So you may see Google search and see that financial aid, but you actually have to go and check that is that financial aid available for international students or not, if you are an international student. So shortlist the colleges which are actually offering the scholarship. See that is it a merit-based scholarship or a need-based scholarship. If it is a need-based scholarship, are you actually eligible for need-based scholarship or not? Because if you are not eligible for need-based scholarship, then in the end you will not going to get the scholarship. Then you should mostly rely on merit-based scholarship. So you should select the colleges which are offering merit-based scholarship. Apply early. That's very important. If you'll apply in early action deadline, then you will be having more chances to get into the scholarship, because universities also feel that you are applying to them in early action because it would be your first choice or second choice university. Meet the financial aid deadline. Make sure that apart from your college application, you should also submit your financial aid application in time. Approach the colleges after getting accepted. I am having cases wherein students are accepted without financial aid, but once they get the acceptance letter and then they further approach the university for financial aid, they have got the scholarship of $21,000 per annum. I mean, maybe $6,000 to $21,000 per annum, wherein some students got 12,000, some 8,000, and some 21,000. So it's not like that if the university, while giving you the offer, is not offering the scholarship, that's the dead end. No, it is not. You can appeal, make a strong appeal. Don't be shy. Share the facts that you are looking for scholarship and why you are looking for scholarship. You may also share that you are having admit from other universities who are offering you a scholarship, or you have to take the decision based on the scholarship, and universities would more than be happy to offer you the scholarship if they are having the financial aid, and also if they are offering the merit-based scholarships to the international students. So it's not like that only in the application you will able to put up the scholarship. The other part of the scholarship is the department scholarship. It's not only the merit based scholarship. There are many department scholarships which are available for international students. So you also should check out the department scholarship once you will get the acceptance letter from the university, and approach the university. There is some application, there could be some additional essay which you have to write. So apply for those scholarship to avail maximum financial aid. So that's what are the few tips, mistakes, and how you should approach for the scholarship when you're doing your college applications. Any questions? Anybody is having any questions? Okay, so if not, then you can, if you have any questions, you can drop an email at acs@score-plus.com, and I would be more than happy to answer your queries. You can always drop an email to this particular email ID. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Hope to see you again. Bye.